welcome to Upload, the internet program where we take our collective consciousness and upload it to your mind. Today's episode, I'm Andrew Moody, and on today's episode we have Mr. Bobby Del Rio.
Hi.
The one, the only, Todd Van Allen.
I'm the stubby one.
The irrepressible Lewis Taylor.
What?
Wow, that's not creepy at all. It's
What
not creepy at
is
all.
that?
I might need a restraining order. And for the second time ever, yes, we have a woman on the program.
Wow.
Yes, your second
last
chick. How do you feel, Todd?
Pretty
Better not
good. Pretty
insult
good.
me.
Yeah.
We have Megan Larson on the program.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Did Megan the
thanks for having me.
Stallion get shot? Is that what happened? Did she, Megan the Stallion?
What does that even mean?
What are you talking
I don't
about?
Where did this come from?
I don't know.
What
It's
is
Megan.
the
Wow.
As a matter of
Stallion?
fact,
I'm a boomer. Leave me alone.
oh my
There
God.
can only
I've
be
just-
one Megan in this world.
What's
know.
older than Boomer? Because that's Lou.
Dead.
Dead. It's called dead.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
called dead. That's right.
There's a box in the ground.
You know what?
That is where
Before we
the
start-
pre-boomers go.
Before we start, let's have Megan introduce herself and tell us, who she is and what she's up to.
And if she got
Hello.
shot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I got shot. No, I'm alive. I'm very.
God, you're creepy. God, Lewis, you're so creepy.
So I'm actually a ghost that came back from the dead after being shot, and I'm lucky enough to be caught on camera. So
Yay.
call yourselves the Ghostbusters because you've done it.
Wow.
Who are you going to call?
Wow.
Who are you
Who
gonna
you gonna
call, right?
Well,
No, I'm Megan Larson. I am a writer-director. I work with Bobby Del Rio a lot. Don't know why.
poor thing.
Nepotism.
Megan, we have to, but you.
Nepotism. Yeah, he's basically my dad. So
Oh, Lou is appreciating this a little bit too much. I've never heard him laugh like that in my entire life. Oh, no.
Sorry, Daddy.
No.
Oh. Welcome to the
Never gonna
Thunderdome.
hear the end of this.
Oh boy.
Megan, welcome to the Thunderdome.
I'm
Yeah,
just glad
welcome,
someone else
Megan.
is taking the heat from me this week. This is fun. This
Yeah,
is
oh
exactly.
Todd, you're gonna get the heat soon. Just you
Oh
wait.
no, I'm not gonna say a goddamn thing. You know what? Thank you. Goodbye. I'm out.
No, don't go away. Come back. We love
Come
you,
back.
Todd.
How do you do that?
Why are white people so
Todd.
touchy?
I know.
Oh,
What?
just a
Now
second.
what?
White
My
privilege.
video
White
fucked up
men.
again.
Am I right?
mean,
Now
you
he
see?
can't get
Oh,
back on.
Yeah,
Now
exactly.
he can't figure
now
out.
The
he's
smart move.
regretting it.
My
See?
joke
Yeah.
was too good. My
Yeah.
joke was too good.
It was funny until it
There
wasn't.
you go.
Right.
There you
He's
go.
talking.
Okay.
He's just not on
Anyway.
video.
I'm just here.
Wow.
Now who's the fucking ghost? Now who's the fucking ghost?
I've lost control already. Awesome. Great.
Oh my god.
Thanks,
This
Megan.
is either
Okay.
the best or worst podcast
And
we've done.
scene.
so
That's the
far.
end of the podcast.
That's the end of the- Thanks a lot, folks.
Thanks
We're
a lot
nuts
for
and
joining
bolts.
us.
Please tip your waiter.
Bobby Eyeball.
Hold on. Who's the woman?
Okay, all right. So let's start. So, on a real hilarious note, I do want to bring up the fact that recently, the NFL just started their season, and they decided to have a moment of silence during the NFL game, and roughly 17,000 fans of the Kansas City Chiefs filed into Arrowhead Stadium for the start of the NFL season. They found themselves thrust in the middle of the nationwide discussion about social injustice. These Super Bowl champs, they wanted to have a moment of silence for Black people, basically, who have been shot by the police, and the crowd booed.
Oh my God. You gotta love the
So,
United
let me
States
get
of
this
America.
straight.
Is there a point? What's the point?
Yeah. I just think, the way the NBA reacted was different. There's a moment of silence, but also, too, there weren't
Right.
fans, right? So we don't know what would have happened. Chances are,
That's true.
I think there's a lot of people of color who watch basketball, maybe more than watch football, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
probably.
It's a tough call. But I just think that I would guess that the fans of the NBA would be more respectful, but we don't know. But what we do know is that, especially fans of the Kansas City Chiefs don't like the Black Lives Matter movement at all.
I don't think
wanna
it's just Kansas City, right? I mean, so Colin Kaepernick, right? I'm sure most people know, but for anyone who doesn't, like Colin Kaepernick was the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. So the whole like take a knee thing started with Kaepernick, and like all the owners were against him. And like the NFL of all the major sports leagues in North America has been in a way ahead of this issue, but in a bad way, right? Like it was completely politicized by Trump. It's like such a divisive issue, white versus black in the United States, in the NFL for sure, right? Where the NBA, it's like most people are pretty progressive. I mean, they literally have Black Lives Matter written on the court of the games, and everyone's just like, yeah, fine. Like, you know what? But the NFL, for whatever reason, it's like war all the time.
Well, let's be fair. This is the same organization that has not only the Kansas City Chiefs, troubling, in Arrowhead Stadium, coming at you, but also the Washington Redskins.
Hey.
Strike three.
And they refuse to change it 3 for
Right.
3.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, if you look at the systemic racism in the States, there's still very much segregation, right? You notice that they keep, Black neighborhoods poor, white neighborhoods rich, and they do it in a way with the housing market that, it prevents the Black community from succeeding. And so it's very much, I mean, we do have our problems in Canada, but it is very divided and segregated there, where basically they are trying to keep the Black community down. And I think that's reflected in the NFL too, and the booing, because to me, it's thinking of it, who in their right mind would boo over taking a knee for people who unjustly lost their lives to police brutality? Who in their right mind would think that way?
Yes, you said it right there. Right mind.
Yeah.
Right there.
Okay.
I think if I were a Black NFL player and I was locked arms with a white NFL player, taking a moment of silence for people of color who have been shot by the police, and the crowd was booing, I think I'd quit. I think that'd be like, my second last day in the NFL. Because I would feel like a slave. I would feel like, the people who are paying my salary don't respect my humanity.
Yeah, but that's always been the case across the board.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that way in the NBA. I just don't.
No.
In the
NBA is
NFL,
more
it is.
respectful.
But I think if you look at, you can look at if you want to look at a Canadian game, think how well that would go over in an NHL game.
Yeah.
It's not, and if you want to talk about oppression in Canada, you've got to talk about Native folk. And one of the things, though, about that I really want to bring to the conversation is that the divide has been created because there are so many poor white folk who are not part of the dialogue. It's kept on a race line and not on a class line, and that's structure.
I disagree about the NHL. I think the NHL, the fans of the NHL, the Canadian fans of the NHL, understand the importance of the Black Lives Matter movement and are very respectful. Yeah, sure.
No way. Way.
I
That's
thought
what
they'd
they want
clap.
you to
I think they'd clap, and that's what I thought Lou meant.
You know what? It's because all the Canadians have figured out the art of bullshitting their way through controversy.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just black square, black square, black square, black square. I have a friend. I used to play basketball with this guy, black guy, great guy, and he said it was actually interesting. He played hockey when he was a child. I actually have I think Charles Officer used to play hockey as well.
Charles
There's
Officer, actually, he played hockey in Europe.
A lot of black athletes. A lot of black athletes are I think had really negative experiences playing hockey as children. And he would tell me his mother took him out of the game because, forgive, some of my language, but basically and maybe there's a segue here later, but she got tired of everyone calling him a monkey every time that he went on the rink, and they would throw bananas on the rink every time and he was the star of the team. What? He would score 6 goals, but he was the only black guy. And eventually it was just and when he told me this story, and he was in his 30s, it was like he was gonna he'd been carrying that with him his whole life.
I mean, just to jump in on that, was made to play. It was part of the school curriculum when I was coming up in the winter, that you would be, the guys would go out and play stick hockey on skates with no pads, 8 or 9 years old. And I was constantly told that Negroes had weak ankles and couldn't play hockey, and was constantly, checked on the ice just to prove the point. But I'm on the fence here, because that was in the 60s, right? The early 60s. I can't speak to what's happening today. Maybe the NHL has progressed. I'm hesitant to believe that, but maybe it's happening.
Look, my
Absolutely.
favorite
Look at
NHL
it.
player is
Sorry, go
PK Subban, right? PK Subban used to play for Montreal Canadiens, defenseman, one of the best defensemen ever. I don't know if I've ever seen a more talented defenseman, to be honest. And Montreal Canadiens has been my team like my whole life, right? Loved him. I have his jersey. And he got so much criticism. He would score a goal, right? Check a guy, and it's like, if he celebrated the wrong way, his own team would criticize him. And that would be the headline in the newspaper, right? Oh my God, showboating again. It's like, dude, he scored 2 goals and had an assist. Like,
Yeah.
So to your point, I don't think hockey is entirely clean as well, because it took us just until recently to get rid of Don Cherry.
I was just going to bring up Don Cherry. There
yeah.
were people that actually were protesting him leaving the, and it's just, he clearly had done something wrong.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me how there were people protesting outside of the CBC building, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
Isn't it funny though? Because the weird side of me wonders if he got caught eating his own boogers before the broadcast, and someone went, "No, that's it."
Right.
But that's just my weird mind.
Just to show you sort of like where the waves. It probably has gotten better, but years ago when PK Subban was playing in Montreal, I used to have a joke in my act where I said I hate PK Subban, and it's not because he plays for the Montreal Canadiens, who I hate. It's not because he's always speaking to the referee. It's not because he's selfishly celebrating his goals and doing it a very flagrant way. I hate him because I'm horribly, horribly racist. And I would tell that joke, and I would find in various urban communities people got the irony of the sentiment.
Right, exactly.
But when I would do it in small towns, I would mostly get that, but then I would also get a, hey, cool, he's one of us.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
so I was like, we are only as good as the last cheer we make.
Okay, Andrew is going to defend the NHL now.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say in Quebec,
You
I'm sure you
love
get a lot
white
of
people, don't you?
That's later. That's the last segment. Don't skip ahead.
Well, yeah, exactly.
No, all I was saying was, I don't think they would boo during the ceremony because we're too Canadian. We wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Canadians. We don't.
That
do
I'll
Yeah.
say, yeah.
Canadians go,
Yeah.
oh yeah, totally, black.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right.
Yeah, Canadians would say, they would clap,
Yeah.
but then all the
Oh,
races go,
great.
oh, fuck, are gonna clap.
This would be the racist boo. They would go, boo, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I grew up with a guy who played actually goal in the NHL. Like he's around my age. He's retired now. But I remember him. Like everybody was so proud of him, and people in the Black community were very, very proud of him. But I can only imagine what he went through on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It was probably brutal.
But I think your point is drawing me, like, for the NFL to have fans in, first of all, is probably not wise. When you look in the stands, this is why I think basketball would react differently, and I think this is why the NBA as an organization has been the most progressive by far in everything that's occurred in the past while. The fact that they have Black Lives Matter there front and center on the court, the fact that every player has some statement of justice on their back. I loved Ibaka's, which is respecte bisou, which is respect us, I believe. So like Education reform is on the back of Lowry. Like they're all like really kind of
Yeah.
taking this, and the fact that that organization allows this,
Mhm.
you don't see people in the grid doing like the Zoom call cheering that they're doing, making fun of this. You don't see anyone sort of like flashing up all lives matter or anything like that.
You know, but it's interesting you say that because so there's I've been a basketball writer for years. That's my favorite sport. I love the game, right? So Jonathan Isaac, who's a player for the Magic, who's, one of the emerging stars in the league. He's not quite a star yet, but he's very, very good. He's got a really good chance of becoming a star. He was the only player who refused to take a knee. So I guess it's almost inverted. It's interesting. It's like in the NBA, I guess everybody takes a knee now, I think, like during the anthem or like it's so this gesture of solidarity, and everyone, and he's black, right? And he didn't do it. And everyone was like, what? Why? What do you mean you're not going to? I guess for him, he had a sort of, Orthodox Christian reason why, and like he's black, like he doesn't hate black people. He just felt like, whatever his reasons were, he just felt like he wasn't comfortable doing it, and this and that. And he got so much criticism. It's almost like the other way.
Oh,
right?
just because he's black doesn't mean that he doesn't hate black people.
That's true.
Look,
there
maybe
is
he does,
internalized
but
racism,
Absolutely.
just as there is
He's
internalized
just a kid.
sexism.
I mean, I don't know. It's possible.
Absolutely.
But what if he didn't? I mean, this is the thing, right? Is that, we were talking about black conservatives, I think, the last podcast. I think it's interesting. And I don't know how much balance of power they have, but I think it's possible they're going to define this election. And it's almost like if you're a right-wing conservative, there's people in the black community who will like take your ethnicity away from you. So, oh, you're not black if you believe in, whatever, Reagan economics or whatever the thing is,
Well, speaking of right-wing conservatives,
That's a good segue.
He's the
right?
best. He's the best.
Thank you. Speaking of right-wing service, thanks to Bob Woodward, we have actual voice recordings of a certain orange leader down south who
Wonder who that is.
admitted during the early pandemic he knew how dangerous COVID actually was and didn't say anything.
Oh, I saw
Refused
that.
to say anything.
He
was like,
said,
"Oh, it
I
was-"
didn't want to worry the people, but
Yeah.
I mean, the people are dead. So
Yeah.
So Megan, what do you think are going to be the consequences of like people hearing that Donald Trump said this? Do you think Donald Trump's supporters will even care?
honestly, I hate to say it, but no, because he has already gotten away with so much crap, right? You see the racist statements, the misogynistic statements, basically admitting that he has sexually assaulted a woman by just grab her by the pussy, right? And, I hear there's a bill with some evidence with collusion with Russia, but again, all of this, he's gotten away with it. And these are criminal things, right? Sexual assault is something you should get jail time for. And they've let that go. He made fun of a disabled reporter. They let that go. So I feel like Trump supporters will always find an excuse for him and a reason
I don't think
why
it's
he
just
did it.
that they find an excuse for him. I think that's why they elected him.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's like they love that. I think it's like the more he does like horrible things and doesn't get punished for it, it's like their fantasy. It's like they're living vicariously through him.
I think the problem, though, and it's a card that the Republicans play very well. As much as you want to point the finger at the Republicans for malfeasance and felony actions, how can you not point your fingers at the Democrats as well, considering the history of malfeasance in both parties? So all Trump has to do is say, okay, yeah, well, look at so-and-so and look at what, like politicians throughout the history of politics have gotten away with shit a lot of the times that's why they're politicians.
In the last year, Joe Biden was accused of sexual assault, right?
Mhm.
And Kamala Harris accused him of being a racist.
Yeah.
And now,
she's his running partner.
I
And-
disagree.
Again.
You know what, Lewis, quickly, I disagree. I think in the time of Nixon, he resigned because he knew that constitutionally he could not survive an impeachment because he knew he was guilty. And
I
there
don't
was
think-
there was a time when politicians, you know, you would destroy your career by saying half of the things that Donald Trump says.
Yeah, one, you're talking, I think your reality though is post 60s. I think the kind of things that Donald Trump has been saying, especially on the race and ethnicity side, you know, assaulting women, that has been a current in male politics forever. The 60s started this kind of correction of behavior, if you want, or political correctness, and verbal in their verbal actions. But as far as negatively affecting their careers, ending their careers through saying really unconscionable things, that's a really recent phenomenon.
Yeah,
But
and I
here's-
mean,
Oh, sorry, Megan, go ahead.
oh
He's
no.
going to talk
Sorry.
about when she grew up in the 60s and her.
Yeah, when I grew up in the 60s,
Mhm.
you might not know it, but I'm 80 years old. No.
When were you
I
born
told
again?
you,
When were you born again?
ghost.
Does that feel good?
1998. That's when I was
Thanks.
born.
Wow.
Bobby's my
I'm out.
father.
None of your damn business. Bobby, why did you ask? It was none of your damn
Wow,
business.
yeah,
Yeah,
really.
none
How
of
does
your
it feel
damn
though, guys?
business.
Like, how does it feel? 1998.
Feels
I was in
great.
university.
Yeah,
It
my
does feel great.
kid,
Oh,
my
God.
kid was born in 97, so it's all good. I'm
98, I
Grant's.
was setting up the blocks for my divorce. Uh,
As you were saying, Megan. As you were saying.
Yes, but I think that after you have a huge wave of progress, which we had from Obama, you know, I think that's why he's getting away with more, because there was hatred building up from all of the racists. And so when Trump comes out and says the things that they are holding back, now they feel they have a license to go ahead and say those things, you know, and be that way. And I think with every wave of progress we have, there are always people who are going to want to pull back. And so I think that might be a factor as well.
I think to your original point, Megan, I don't think there's going to be any budge in the only Trump supporters that are going to see this through and actually see how this affects them are the ones that have been effective directly, where they put up the hoax, they didn't go up, they went to the fucking rallies without a mask, and then suddenly someone they know died and someone in their house died. Like, and even then, like, effectively what Trump has done is he's killed 200,000 people in the middle of Fifth Avenue and hasn't lost a vote.
Well, you know what? To your point,
Yeah.
Todd, to your point, this biker rally that happened in South Dakota last month, what they're estimating is that they're just with that biker rally alone, they're going to be 290,000 more cases just from that biker rally alone.
Yeah, it's
290,000.
It's staggering, and to again, you know, for him to stand there and bald-facedly say, "I didn't want to worry anyone." Meanwhile, his entire campaign is middle-aged white people in the suburbs. You're going to die. Antifa's going to kill you. They're taking away your guns. You are not going to have religion anymore. Fear, 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 fear. It's just all
Yeah,
that.
fear mongering.
And it's and what's also really curious about all this is, like, sure, you can compare Biden and his missteps and Trump's. That's not even close. I mean, we're talking like the Walter Mondale Reagan election in terms of tallies. Like, it is horrible.
That was a reference to the past, Bobby.
Me?
Not
I
even
like how
gonna
you're
look at
talking
me.
down to me.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Bobby.
Meg-
I know
Megan's my
everything.
surrogate daughter, and she gets a pass.
Right.
Thought you
So,
were 80 years
80
old.
years old.
Megan brings
Yes.
up another really good point about sort of like the difference between the scandals on left and right. Like, the thing that I've always noticed is that when liberals have a scandal, you have to do so much homework. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, now I got to figure it out, charity law and conflict of interest. Whereas with conservatives, you just need the body count. How many died in Walkerton? It's a number. What's happened in long-term care? Dead people. That's the difference.
And-
See, you don't need to do anything for conservative scandal.
And you know what? Like, honestly, I try really hard to respect people of the opposite political spectrum. Bobby, you've done your own work, like trying to read what they write and trying to really understand. people who come from the conservative perspective, how they view the world. But there's now a brand new version of conservatives called QAnon. I don't know if you guys have heard of QAnon.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah,
This is Q.
that's cute.
Hi, Q. You look cute. I'm just going to give you guys a description for those of you who don't know. So, QAnon is a far-right conspiracy theory coming out of 4chan that alleged that a cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles, usually left-wing people, are running a global child sex trafficking ring and are plotting against Donald Trump, who is battling them and leading to a day of reckoning involving the mass arrest of journalists and politicians.
Ironic, because Trump was pictured at Epstein's Island.
Right. I know.
I'm sorry.
He's trying to change it from the inside.
Yes, he is. He's going, I know, guys, it's not what it looks like. I know that I was at the island, but I was there trying to get intel.
By the way,
No.
Megan,
Megan,
you can never leave this podcast because so far you're the only one who's ever been able to do a decent Donald Trump impression.
Nice.
Thank you.
We have 4 actors in the room, and you nailed it. Thank you. Thank you.
Give me my actress status right now.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
You know, the QAnon thing, it's very interesting to me because I think it's just, to me, it smells of like desperation, right? It's like anyone who's supporting him is yeah, totally. It's you know, like you could have people who, you know, have like actual brain damage or something, and if they uttered a noise that sounded like Trump, he's a Trump vote, they'll give him a camera and, you know, blow it up. Like,
yeah, I'm finding like I this brings up a fundamental question for me around what is left, what is right, and what's just insane. Right. And and they're all interconnected. I've known for years all kinds of people that would call themselves card-carrying leftists that will go on about the elders of Israel, that, you know, and the Jewish conspiracy. I've talked to conservatives that believe in the civil rights. Like no one is purely left or right. It's all about personal self-interest, right? And what is going to support you? What beliefs will support you and further your needs?
And I guess if you see all of these scandals that Trump has been a part of and criminal acts, right, as we previously discussed, I mean, you're going to want to find something on the Democrats, and you're going to want to say, well, the Democrats are Satan-worshiping pedophiles, so that you can excuse what Trump has done, and then you
Some
can
of them
say,
a lot of them are.
But no, like seriously though, like somebody walked into a pizza place with a machine gun because he believed that Hillary Clinton was holding sex slaves in the basement of the pizza parlor, threatening the lives of everybody in there. And when he realized that it wasn't true, he was shocked. And I just
as
think
the only Satan worshiping pedophile on the podcast, allow me to provide some insight.
I knew it.
It's amazing. I have actually done some kind of deep dives into this a little bit just on Twitter. I didn't bother going a lot further, but like I have friends of mine that I have kept in contact with for years, and I've just noticed more and more vitriol and conspiracy coming out of their Twitter feeds. And I've, you know, checked in on a couple of conversations that have steered me towards some podcasts and some websites and some, you know, message boards that are just bordering on insane. And what has happened is that the internet has helped exacerbate this and create the bubbles that we see ourselves in. I freely admit I'm in the liberal beta cuck libtard bubble that I am in on on Twitter and Facebook and all that. And there isn't a lot of crossover. So because of that, all that happens is that the fury just keeps building and building and building, so that suddenly you do have QAnon going, that sounds fucking reasonable because it's kind of close to what my purview is. And then
Right.
that just keeps the spin going and going. And here's more resources. And here's another guy locked in his mom's basement spewing out random shit that people are going to believe now.
What's
it's
really
just-
interesting about all of this is that I do not think that we would be in the kerfuffle, the state we're in, if we weren't such across the board narcissists. We're such a narcissistic
It's
culture.
true. Especially
But all
with
these things are
social
related.
media.
They're
I can
all
tell you.
related,
Yeah.
right? Because
Like,
we're in a social media culture, right? So everyone's living in an echo chamber, which is the phenomenon that Todd was describing. But it's also like we have the social media, like there are American companies who are sort of like dictating the ethos, and the American political culture is contrived really of two main corporations that are called political parties, and they
Mhm.
compete against each other. And so we get all of our information all across the world from essentially American media outlets that are then filtered through social media outlets, which are really just still American media outlets. And
Yeah.
then you're seeing, it's like we all have our own channel now. And now that breeds the narcissism. And so now we're just playing to our audience members on all of our little shows that we have all of the time.
Which
Yeah, and
is
look at-
exactly what we're doing here.
Subscribe, like and subscribe and share.
Like and subscribe. No, it's especially prevalent with Gen Z. I'm a Gen Zer, just at the very, very end of it.
What's
And
that?
What's
What are
that?
those?
14
What
to
are those?
22-year-olds. I'm 22.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And he's
This
shaking his
hurts.
head. I know, it hurts. And so we grew up in the social media culture from when we were young, and from when the internet came about when I was about, I don't know when I started
Don't
using
answer,
social media.
don't
I was
answer.
13 or so. You know?
Bobby, is there something you need to feel guilty about? You're acting
No,
very
I'm not guilty. It just
weird,
hurt. It just hurt.
dude.
It's like my own mortality.
You predator.
Like I feel so
Wow.
young, and
Wow.
I'm not. You know, like
No, you're not. Shut up. Let her finish.
hurt.
So we grew up in this social media age where our validation comes from likes from other kids and all of that. And our news, we don't watch the news anymore like our parents do. We look on social media, and the feed, like Bobby mentioned, is catered towards us. And so I think even in Gen Z on TikTok, I saw that there was this trend going around about Wayfair. I don't know if you guys heard of this story, but there's a conspiracy theory where Wayfair is a part of trafficking children because Gen Z basically, Gen Z was finding these cupboards that were for $10,000, and apparently the name of it was the same name as a missing child, and like the last name of them. And they connected Wayfair to Epstein's wife. And so they think that Wayfair is selling children, not the actual furniture.
How
And
much?
that
much
was
does
a
it
trend
cost?
going through my generation.
Like I want
Okay.
how much is a good child that works hard? And can clean
10,000
my room?
plus, apparently, according to Wayfair.
So
Dude, there's cattle prods. Like,
Yeah.
who cares if they want to work hard?
I am
Right.
actually recording my end of this on top of a Wayfair desk, which I got, and it's very sturdy. And I'll tell you, this is not the child that I ordered. I just ended up with this
You know
piece of furniture, but
Ju-
it's
Could you just
fine.
knock twice on it for me? I just want to see if anybody.
Yeah, I
knocks
want to
back.
make sure.
Just
Right.
like, hello.
Have you? Have you?
All right.
Hey,
Yeah.
does anyone hear that muffled scream?
It's
But
getting
I
dark.
mean,
Very dark.
Maybe open your drawer, see what's in there.
right.
Just. Could you
I
just
mean,
check for me?
when we and this is a part of the whole narcissism of our time, where we have eschewed all historical references, right? And it's about the moment as if it exists outside of the sphere of a continuous human experience. Like, this is just another version of the shit we do. right?
You know what? I think there's a true crisis of epistemology where people just don't understand or refuse true knowledge. And I think it's actually really dangerous. The idea that there could be people who actually believe that, Hillary Clinton and Ellen DeGeneres and, Barack Obama are siphoning off the blood of children for a substance called adrenochrome and then committing sex acts on them. For someone to actually believe that.
Go on.
It's the
I'm with you.
No, but it's just it points to, and also to like the whole flat earth movement, which actually came about because of YouTube, because of the internet, because it's just, I think there's a crisis of knowledge. I think there's a crisis of knowing versus belief.
Okay, but I have to disagree with that, considering if we looked at the history of wing nuttery from off the Veld to now, we have scads and scads of fucked up theories.
I'm telling you, but they weren't in the mainstream.
No, the media really gives rise to it.
Can I say, though, that the mainstream is a construct and it's a recent one? Everything's mainstream. If you're talking to another person, that's your mainstream.
No, but social media, it skews perception, right?
It does.
It's like sometimes
Sure.
if you say something politically unpopular or if somebody says something really awkward, especially in these internet forums, like somebody will just say something and maybe they're from, maybe they went to war and now they don't have legs, and maybe they'll say something stupid about anything, but they don't have legs. So you can't shut down the person that doesn't have legs. And so there's just this silence. So you'll have like hundreds of people not say anything, and it appears that person's opinion means more than it does.
I'm going to ask Megan this question because I want to know the perspective of the Gen
Z.
Gen Z.
Zed.
Why is it not Zed?
Sorry, it's Z for me.
I'm teasing. So, because what you will never understand is that when I was your age, or and younger, there were newscasts and newspapers that were considered to be sources of authoritative knowledge. Where, if Walter Cronkite said that men landed on the moon, then they landed on the moon.
Right.
Whereas today, there are no newspapers. Like, have you even read a newspaper? Like, I'm not being insulting at all. Like, when was the last time I haven't bought a newspaper in fucking
Can you read?
I know.
Have you? No.
Gen Z?
I'm not being insulting.
Can you
No.
read?
I can't read. I never learned. No, of course I can read.
No, that wasn't my point. I'm sorry. What I'm saying is,
I know.
I haven't bought a newspaper in 10 years. So if I'm old as fuck. So if I haven't bought a newspaper in 10 years, have you bought a newspaper?
No, I've never bought a newspaper. The only time that I've ever had to read a newspaper is when I was in grade school and I had to either cut and paste things or I had to write a news article based on the articles that I saw. Otherwise, they're mostly printed. But you're right, you had that source of authoritative knowledge, whereas my generation questions every single thing, right? They look at the media and they're like, that's not authoritative. This is left-wing media. This is right-wing media. They view social media and what we can expose from our lives as truth, while kind of neglecting that the algorithms really cater to your beliefs.
Well, let me ask you a question then. If that's true, then how come all the people that are going at these, the protests that sometimes turn into riots, it's usually young people killing each other? I mean, that Kyle Rittenhouse thing, it was very weird because you had this white 17-year-old kid killing two other white kids in their 20s, and they're all on, it's either for or against Black Lives Matter, and yet they're all white. It's so weird. They're all young. So it's well, obviously you're not seeing the complexity of what's happening because they're going with guns to a protest.
That's pretty typical of human behavior, though, historically. Yeah. I mean, when you talk about, and this is where I disagree, it's not that I disagree. Yes, there was an authoritative voice when I was coming up. That authoritative voice had, up until very recently in my youth, told me that I was inferior and was one step up from a monkey. So the notion that an authoritative voice is a positive thing, no, it creates a social structure right? But if you're outside of that social structure and what's considered positive, you are fucked. So for me, I'm again, yeah, it's just a different kind of fuckery. Looking at the history of human genocide, slaughter, enslavement, it's something new.
Now,
But
you
I,
know
but
what
I
else
think
is
there,
new?
Oh.
just before we go off of this, first of all, Lewis, I meant to say this ages ago. Sorry about your weak ankles, but there has to be some like we have to be sort of like as dark as it appears right now. There has to be sort of an age of enlightenment wherein yes, the authoritative voices that were using that voice in an oppressive tone are now, because of the swing of where we are in terms of population, in terms of demographic, in terms of race and color, in terms of ability, is now seeing as a majority across all faces a lot more accepting. And so because of that, it's the argument that Obama was not for gay marriage. The people were for gay marriage, so he became very pro-gay marriage. So that's how that happened. And so there has to be, now that we have so many more choices, sadly, and not sadly, but like we have more choices in the way that we consume our media and our information. There now is a responsibility on our part to be able to look at it and go, which are the sites that are more trusted than others? Which are the ones
Human beings doing responsibility.
I know.
But the thing
it's horrible.
is with the algorithms, and this is going back to how social media breeds narcissism, although it's important to question an authoritarian voice and to be more inclusive of more voices, and that's a really great thing to come about. The thing about social media is the algorithms, like I was saying, target specific views and specific tweets to you. So while the protesters who got shot would be having, all of these justice for Breonna Taylor and all of those types of posts for justice on their feed, Kyle Rittenhauser would probably have all these conspiracies, and he would probably have all of why it's bad, all of that crap, right? Because it's so catered, and it makes you kind of believe that your way of thinking is how everyone else thinks, because that's all you ever see. And then
it's the echo chamber.
And it creates a divide now because people are unable to see others' points of view and are so caught in their own. And
if people could just acknowledge on a personal level that, I'm an asshole, it would make things so much, okay, I have this opinion, but I'm an asshole, so maybe I shouldn't take it so serious.
That's literally my vision board.
I was going to say very quickly. Sorry, go ahead.
So I know you want to get to the racist puppy dog story or whatever it is you want to get into right now. I did want to ask Megan, since you're here and sort of in the guise of like the question of Rittenhouse and how he went out and shot two people. In your generational view, is there a lot of nihilism at this point because of how you're growing up under the threat of climate change, seeing not racism increasing but now being filmed and put in front of us, seeing all these things? Like when I grew up, it was the Cold War and the Russians were going to nuke us and sex could kill you. Now nuclear war can kill us from Korea, but thank God we cured AIDS. It's a joke that I've had on stage and never worked. The question I have for you, Megan, is what is the point of view that's driving you? Like, do you have a sense of nihilism? Does anything matter? Does anything matter from a generational viewpoint there?
Does anything matter, Megan?
Does anything matter? I don't know.
Say yes.
So there is a big sense of nihilism with my generation. And that comes from definitely climate change and all of the tensions we're seeing right now. Because in our parents' generation, they can turn it off. You watch the news, you see what's happening, you turn it off and you're done. For us, it's 24/7. So all the bad things that are happening in the world, climate change, the fires, George Floyd's murder, Breonna Taylor's murder, it's there 24/7. And so we always have to see this. And so, and you know, there's the housing market as well. And there's everything just feels like it's crashing down on Generation Z. So I feel like, to your point, Todd, there is a lot of nihilism, and Generation Z either cares too much or too little. You
So
know?
wait, why is this? Is this because this is your generation, essentially a generation that was raised online, and essentially the internet never closes for the night, right? The internet is an ongoing thing. Where those of us who grew up in a time where the internet was created, we see the internet as an extension of media, right? It's an extension of entertainment, whatever you use it for. But we can clearly differentiate between where our lives and the internet begins. But for you guys, the internet kind of is your life.
It is our life, because that's how we grew up. And it's not like we can turn it off, because all of our socialization, almost all of our socialization is text now and on social media. And so we can never turn it off. And even when you're scrolling through something innocent and trying to see something positive online, something negative will come up. An example, and this is something that happened on TikTok, which is mostly dominated by teenagers. I'm kind of in and out of that. I'm not really too into
None
it.
of my posts are getting any traction. I get it. Yeah.
I'll look for them.
Okay,
But there was a video circulating on TikTok for young kids, young teenagers, of a guy who shot himself in the head on live stream.
Oh my God.
This was circulating for
Where can
teenagers.
I watch that? Where can I?
TikTok. But it was circulating, and teenagers, and you know, you don't realize how that can change you for life, seeing this kind of stuff all the time, 24/7. So to your question, Todd, we either are activists and care too much and we want to change the whole world and fix all its problems, or there are points of Gen Z where we just feel like depressed and nihilistic, and you know what, nothing matters. How am I even gonna fix anything? And so yeah, my generation's a little messed up, I have to say.
Yeah, but I
was going to add that your generation also has to deal with cancel culture as well, right?
Oh my God,
It's
yes.
something that has come up in the past few years, and there have been many people who have been canceled, and one who is just about to be canceled is a woman by the name of Laurie Scheck, who is a professor of creative writing at the New School in New York. She's a decades-long veteran of the classroom, and her offense was she was talking about James Baldwin's documentary called I Am Not Your Negro. And during, you know, one of James Baldwin's actual statements back in 1963 on an appearance in television, he said the words, and I'm about to use the word, so if you're triggered, I apologize. But this is a news report. I'm just trying to report what's on the news. Okay.
You're just looking for an excuse to say
Yep,
it.
you're gonna get canceled.
Just like I do when I'm listening to my hip hop. That's fine. Go ahead.
So on a television program in 1963, James Baldwin said the words, I am not a knee. And so this professor used the word, talking about it, saying, you know, like, this is like, how would we feel if, you know, the documentary had used that word? And she's in hot water right now. And you know, I'm of two minds. I know I wanted to bring this up. I know we're running late, but I wanted to bring this up because, Bobby, you're a writer, and in your work, you've used the word. In my work, I'm a writer as well. And in my work, I've used the word. But there is a complex number of rules around using the word now.
When I think of Todd, I use that word in my head.
Todd, I just want
White's
you to know,
attached to it, but
you're my N-word, Todd. You're my N-word. Just, yeah.
You know, here's what I'll say to this. It's a complex debate, and I think it's a worthy debate. But one thing that I found disconcerting, that I found to be a political trend, particularly for the younger generation, so Megan, but not Megan specifically, because Megan's actually quite balanced. But some people who have, I think, been inculcated into particular tranches of subculture. In Gen Z, they have a new sort of line of reasoning where if one person is triggered or experiences, even if there was like 1,000 instances where everybody's finding one person in a crowd of 1,000 has a problem with it, you have done something wrong. Now, in cases like rape or racism, this applies because, you know, if you've raped somebody, you can't be like, well, there's 999 girls I didn't rape, right?
This is true.
What about the 10 Bundy's going, there's millions of people I haven't murdered in the world. Like, what? Why are you always going to focus on the negative?
If there is one person in a crowd of 1,000 that doesn't like a joke, do not go to comedy clubs.
No,
Holy cow.
But this is the problem, and
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what you think about this, Todd, because I can only imagine what it's like to be a stand-up comedian, because we're now in a culture where if one person is offended, right? Legitimately, they're not even pretending, they're actually offended, even if they're overwhelmingly the minority of the minority of the minority, but it's one person. And now what they say is, well, yes, that may be your experience, but you cannot invalidate my experience.
True. But my job as a joke teller is to try and make everyone in that room feel good. Like that's my job, right? And if I have somehow not made that happen, I've had to have discussions about some of my jokes after shows with audience members, and it's a great discussion, and I love having it. And it really helps. There are some times where you just go, you know what, this is not your type of comedy. Because that can be a case. But there's a difference between a type of comedy and a content of the comedy. And when I don't have the content right, I firmly believe I can make a joke about whatever I want. Firmly. But I got to make sure that it lands, right? I got to make sure that the reference always uses The Simpsons when Homer ran the sushi menu and had fugu, which I thought was made up, but that's actually a piece of sushi, and it's blowfish. And chefs go to school for 10 years or so to learn how to cut fugu, because if you cut it great, if you cut it perfectly, it's the most delicious piece of sushi you'll ever have. If you cut it wrong, you die. And that's comedy. You can talk about anything, but that fugu has to be cut perfectly. And if it's not, you die.
I agree. I think that, however, because I'm old as fuck, Megan, I remember a time when I was a kid, there's a way to say the N-word where you know it's hurtful, and there's a way to say the N-word where you know it's not. Right. When I was watching Richard Pryor or Eddie Murphy or whatever, those were times when they would use the word and it would be funny and everybody would laugh. And there were times when, walking down the street, some kid decides to call me the N-word, and I know that they're not trying to be friendly. And I think that I think that the younger generations, no, I don't mean to be insulting, but they just didn't experience that. They didn't experience, I think the younger generations, just hearing the word is just offensive. And it's really gotten one professor into trouble, because there's a professor, Greg Patton, at the University of Southern California, who he teaches communications. And he was trying to make a point about pause words or filler words in English and in other languages. So like in English, you know, when we're talking, I'll be talking to you and I might go, or or, you know, or I might say, you know, or like literally or whatever. In English, that's called a filler word. In Chinese, they also have a filler word. And the filler word translated is that, okay? So if a Chinese person is talking, they'll say, oh, you know, hey, I was going to go to the store and that thing that I wanted to get. That's what people would do in Chinese. However, I'm going to pronounce the Chinese word. So I'm not saying a bad word. I'm pronouncing the Chinese word. Canceled. I'm not, don't
He's
cancel.
not going to do it. You're not going to do it well.
Is this one of those French word for seal? Is this what
this is what I was going to talk about after.
Are we going to have music while you do this?
Exactly, I know. And I listened to it very carefully. And what I might do is I might play the professor saying it. But in Chinese, it sounds like this. Nega, nega, nega.
Bum, bum, bum.
That's what the Chinese pronunciation of that is. And he was fired.
Oh, man,
gone.
Really?
And I'm like, I don't agree with that. Because, like Todd, if a French teacher in Canada says the French word for seal, that's a bad word in English. But are they going to get fired?
like think
Yeah,
about how
it's a
bad it
different
is for
language.
Todd. You know, you're a joke teller, and if somebody basically doesn't get your joke, even if it's one of 1,000, you have to now apologize and have a conversation with this person. Okay, in academia, I mean, you know, I think most of us, if not all of us, went to university. Like, you know, I went to U of T. Like, there's whole classes. But I remember we had whole classes where we were debating abortion. Like, that's the class. And like literally it's like the philosophy of medicine is what it was called. And everyone's
Right.
giving their varied opinion about abortion. I mean, I
Right.
can't imagine a more contentious issue. And it was, you know, calm and interesting. You hear the different perspectives. But now it's like, if you have a different point of view, depending on what the subject is, you could be accused of a hate crime.
But
So
here's
how
the
can you
thing.
conduct
I
your
want to,
class?
this is where I disagree with what's being said. People have always disagreed. It's just the media cycles that we have today find it very profitable to present very specific points of view. And they're not broad perspectives. It's like, oh, hey, hitting news. This
This
person or
guy's
these
getting
people,
fired. There's a guy getting fired.
Fired.
because of the news cycle.
Right.
It's getting fired because it has become huge news.
No,
And
he's
those
getting
think
fired
that's
because
true.
his students want him fired. He's
Right,
getting
and
fired
that's
because
right.
his
And I
students
This is
said, we
Generation
want this guy
Z.
gone.
I think
Right,
we're
Well,
not.
then what becomes interesting for me
Right.
is, what did they think? What was the context that he used the word in, and what was the subtext? That becomes
But there's a few issues.
and you're
though. I think-
automatically dismissing their point of view and tying it into this notion
Yes, I
of
am.
cancel. No, I'm talking about Bobby. The
Oh, okay.
cancel
Don't talk to me.
culture.
Talk to Bob.
I didn't even say anything.
No, this whole notion of cancel culture, where it's
Moody
like,
said that.
oh, it's one or two, and
I
you're
did.
riffing on
That
it,
was me.
buddy boy.
That was
You
me.
are riffing on it with this
Sure,
whole
but that was me,
notion
though.
that one person, right, can get upset, and the next thing you know, it becomes this huge. Well, it
Yeah,
sounds like
sure.
more than one or two people got upset. And it's not that I'm disagreeing with what you're saying. I just want to hear their point of view, as well as this point of view around him being
Okay.
canceled and fired.
Well,
Okay,
let me
so
just say one thing, because like we have to, I think, talk about this a little bit more, right? It's like, I think what you say about the media is intelligent, and I think it definitely affects, especially Megan's generation
Yes.
in school. But for me, and again, I'm not a professor. I mean, I did used to teach, but I just think, how can you conduct a class at academia when people are young, their minds are expanding, where debate and differences of opinion are part of the learning process? Like, they're endemic to the education process. It's like, you have to be able to see points of view, whether you agree or not agree.
I agree with you, but I also grew up in a period where if you argued outside of this authoritative worldview, you were shut. You did not even get into the school. So I'm on the fence with this one, because voices have always been oppressed, and
So-
that has no
Yes.
political side.
Megan,
So here's a.
I want to hear Megan's take first.
Yeah, so,
Before
okay.
you, Todd. Let's hear Megan's
No,
take.
of course.
Yeah. So Generation Z, the way that we view it with that word in particular is, because of the history of oppression, the only people who are allowed to use it are those who are Black, because it is reclaiming that word for yourself that has been used to oppress you. Now, so Andrew, you would not be canceled for using it because you're allowed to. you're allowed. It's fine.
I don't think that's fair.
People have different points of
All
view
words
on it,
matter.
but-
So are we
Words matter.
talking about use it in life, or use it in a fiction, in a work of
life.
fiction?
In
Right.
my view in particular is in life, because I mean, I wouldn't want to use it anyway, but I feel that the Black community is allowed to reclaim that word for themselves. It's been used to.
Okay,
But what
okay.
if you're
But-
writing
okay,
a story
wait a
about
second.
slavery?
Wait a second. But Megan, let's
Yeah.
say you're learning Chinese, okay?
Yes.
And the
this is
Chinese
what I
teacher
was-
says, well, no, it's natural for a Chinese person in this situation to say nega, nega, nega. Like,
Yeah.
and they're teaching you that. But they're not teaching the word, the N word. They're teaching you the Chinese word for that. So
Yeah.
I honestly don't think it's fair.
So
for-
this
I don't
is
think
this
that's
is why
fair
I
either,
bring
because
up
I was
the
getting
one
to that
person.
next,
Okay.
where with this, in this particular context matters, right? because this is a different language. This is an entirely, that is not a word that has the same meaning. It is not the same word. It's not what we're talking about here. So I do not think that that professor should have been fired because
So-
you are teaching a word in a different language.
Here's where I
Yes.
disagree with you, Megan. Right, here we go.
Mhm.
I don't think the context is even a factor. I think
Mhm.
it's like, it's people are thinking about, it's like their feelings. It's like, that's what we're talking about. It's like, I was offended, I was hurt, it just takes one person for whatever reason to take anything that's arbitrary and make that mean this person made me feel this way. That's not acceptable. That's where we're at.
Again, you keep coming up with this one person thing. It sounds like a lot of people in the class were upset by his
An assumption.
subtext.
That's an assumption. All we
Well,
know is
you're
that he was
assuming,
fired.
yeah, but you're assuming that one person was upset and that was the cause of the firing. So I'm
whether it's-
sorry.
Whether it
But
was one person.
Let me finish.
Sorry.
The one thing that I want to say about this is that I have been assaulted many a times, not directly, but with the subtext and the intonation. And I'm not saying this guy should have been fired. What I'm saying is, I would like to know whether there was subtext or what the intonation around the use of that word was. Because I will not in any way, shape, or form, if you're going to think that you can get away with being subtle with your racism with me, fuck you.
And you know what? I'll make
That's
sure we play the
true.
video in this segment so you can actually
That'd be
see
great.
it. You can see how it was
That'd be
played.
great.
If you have a lot of or ers, and this is culturally specific, so based on your native language, like in China, the common word is that. So in China, it might be nega. So there's different words that you'll hear in different countries, but they're vocal disfluencies. It's saying that, Two things. One is you can put a pause in between your ideas. So you go A, B, C, D.
Because
Well,
I
you know
can
Was
see
this
what?
a
the
white guy?
video.
Was this a white guy teaching?
Yes. Yeah. It was a,
So
it
then,
was a white
see,
person.
I should be offended that he's speaking Cantonese or Mandarin. I should be offended that you said he spoke Chinese when that's not a language. It's Cantonese or Mandarin, right? So it's like, but Megan should be offended because I'm speaking over her and I'm a man and how dare I? Like, we
So-
all have a card to play.
Right.
Todd can be like, oh, well, I'm a piece of shit. Like, don't we get a voice? You know?
Well, you know
Bobby,
what?
no
that's-
one's
Only if he calls
arguing
me a
with
chick.
you.
Yeah.
No one's
that's the
arguing
proactive
with
thing
you,
I would
Barbie.
take. Yeah.
As a matter of
Listen,
fact, Todd has a weekly segment
okay.
of being
Oh,
offended.
oh,
I want to yell at Bobby some more.
Before,
Let me yell
Wait,
at
you gotta go.
Bobby.
We ran over because I actually wanted to ask Megan too many questions and we just ran over. But I'm glad I did because your
Thank
input has
you.
been awesome.
Yes.
So, but
I was just told
we
to
do.
shut
We
up.
have a weekly segment. We got to
privilege.
get to it.
Male privilege.
Todd, tell us every week why you hate bleep white people.
Yeah, I fucking hate white people. So this week I was kind of scrambling, and it really something kind of came into focus this week, and a lot of people were kind of praising this guy, and I can't believe that I'm actually going to have to agree with the Orange Menace, the Mango Raccoon, on
What?
this for a little bit. Yeah.
Whoa.
No, here
Whoa.
it comes. It's weird. This whole horseshoe thing where if you go far along the horseshoe, you're both kind of like at the same,
Yeah.
man.
Mm.
Never thought I'd see the day.
Bob Woodward, great that you came up with these tapes, bud. Why the second perfect time to have released them was now. The first perfect time to have released it was 6 fucking months ago. Where we could have had impeachment trials, where we could have like brought him to the Senate, where we could have done something to help bring this horse back into the stable. But no, look at you sitting on that so you can get a payday. Fuck you, Bob. Next.
Wow. And
Love it.
maybe he could have saved some lives.
Maybe.
Really?
Maybe.
Really?
200,000 people shot in the middle of Fifth Avenue doesn't change a thing. Doesn't change a thing. What was
I
interesting,
think-
the fallout on this was like if he had taken that information and reacted in the same way, they did this kind of the mathematics behind it, and they said if at that point of cognition that this was something more dangerous than the flu, that it was airborne, that things needed to be done. And they looked at what the numbers would have been like, how many American lives would have been saved had they reacted in the way that other countries did. Even the UK, as bad as they were, 30,000, I think, was the number of lives saved. If they had done what Canada had done at that point of time, the models dictate it was about 140, 150,000 out of the current 2,000 that would have been saved. That's a city. That's a city of people that would still be here, right? It's ludicrous.
Well, you know what?
And he saved
You know
it
what,
for a
Bob?
fucking dollar.
You know what? I know you hate Mr. Woodward, but I don't hate Mr. Woodward because guess what? I love white people.
I'm out.
Yep, Todd's gone again.
Look at that. No, this is my Black Lives Matter
Come back.
post.
Todd, I love you, man.
Oh.
But on my segment today, I want to call attention to Anthony Rapp. Anthony Rapp is an actor. He was actually on a show I was on. He's an actor in Star Trek. We weren't in any scenes together, but he's a really great actor. But also, unfortunately, he was one of the victims of Kevin Spacey when he was a very young boy. And Anthony Rapp has risked his career, and he's placed himself in a very precarious position to actually go after Kevin Spacey. And I wish him the best of luck. I hope he takes that piece of crap down hard. I mean, Kevin Spacey's career is already over, which is fine, but that's not enough, you know?
Yeah.
Never say never.
Yeah.
See,
Kevin
that's the
Spacey's
thing.
gonna
There
have to
needs
pay.
to be, I feel like in these situations, there needs to be an arrest made, not just, they're canceled and their career is over. I feel that's not enough because they can bounce back from that.
The only option Kevin Spacey has left is maybe to become the next president of the United States.
Good one.
Actually,
Nice.
I think this is what's going to happen. What you're going to see is James Woods, Scott Baio, Kevin Spacey, and I don't know, 9 other guys probably. You can throw in Ted Nugent and Kid Rock, and they'll just do a red state tour of 12 Angry Men.
There we
And
go. Nice.
it'll be that.
And on that note, we're wrapping up our episode. Before we go, I want to know Megan's opinion on what's going to happen with the Raptors tonight. What do you think is going to happen?
I think they're going to win. I don't even watch the sports.
That's
But
all you had to say. That's
all
you
I
had
have to say. They're going to win.
Yeah.
It's
So much-
just a bunch of Negroes with a ball.
Oh,
Yes!
that is
Oh,
Exactly.
no, Lou.
Lewis, you canceled, Bish. You
Yeah, canceled. No, he's allowed because
Black
he's
on
still
black
canceled.
hatred.
Anyway, thank you so much, Megan. And we
Oh, thank
really
you
hope
for
that you
having
can
me.
come by again and be on our
Yay,
show. Okay?
Thanks.
Would love
Appreciate
to.
A lot of fun.
You
And
can
thank
replace
you.
Bobby.
And thanks, Bobby. And thanks, Todd. And yes, thanks, Lewis. And thank
And thank you, King of the Segway, Andrew
Exactly.
Moody.
Yes.
And please, if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe because it really does help us. And we will see you again next week.